wonderful, amazing guests, and it has been a labor of love for us to put this together. My name is Ebony McMorris. I am on the board of Thurgood Marshall Center Trust and also the event chair for this particular event. I want to thank, the man of the house, A. Scott Bolden, with allowing us to have this. Let's give him a round of applause. And can I just say how phenomenal this facility is? When we did a run through, I was like, oh my gosh, let me not act brand new. But I'm gonna act brand new. So we're a little intimate crowd, so we wanna keep it light, informative, and fun, but there's gonna be some impactful conversation that we are gonna have tonight that's gonna make you pull your wallet out. That's all I'm saying, okay? But first, I call him my ace every time I see him. He is we go back and forth on theory and on law and on ideas and on the Harlem Renaissance, but he is an amazing, powerful man. He is the chair of our fundraising committee for Thurgood Marshall Center Trust, an amazing lawyer, dynamic, and a new radio personality. I'm gonna have him shout out his station a little bit, so he's a bit of a jazz Renaissance man. But please welcome to the podium, Mr. Donald Temple.
Yes.
Woo!
Yes.
Scott, I was wondering, as they properly recognize you, how it is that you work so hard and yet retain such an incredible tan. Seems to be a contradiction.
That's my mom and dad. It don't wash off.
Thank you, Scott. Sincerely, I can't think of an occasion where the bar, the young lawyers, the black law students, and now Thurgood Marshall have asked you to support their respective causes, and you haven't stepped up to the plate. So beyond nouns and verbs, we're deeply thankful and appreciative.
Yes.
I have a limited job, but in the process, I also want to thank the members of the Thurgood Marshall Board. We are reorganizing and rejuvenating, and we have a new vision for the organization. For those of you who don't know the Thurgood Marshall Center, it is an edifice located on 12th Street. It is in an area that is being rapidly gentrified, and it reflects our culture. It's a center where community organizations come and they have a sanctuary. But it is also a memory to Thurgood Marshall. And what we are attempting to do with the support of people who come far and wide, and we thank you for coming, is to build the memory of Thurgood Marshall and what he stood for in a time of struggle. And this is a time of struggle. So in the reorganization of Thurgood Marshall, we are centered on the rule of law. What is more important in this day and age than the rule of law? Even today, when the president revokes an action that he need not have done by way of law. But even more importantly, the very existence of this administration and what it does, programmatically, financially, legally, through its own Department of Justice in actions that affect not only our lives, but affects the lives of those, typically DC, but those who are yet born. And so that's critical. To that end, we've integrated. I have run a law school preparation institute. It's called the Charles Hamilton Houston Law School Preparation Institute. And at Georgetown Law Center for the last 40 years, we've been educating predominantly African American students who are entering law school. We have done something, Scott, instead of having competing events, we have taken the CHH program and brought it under Thurgood Marshall Center, recognizing that our lives are finite, but the institution will live a lot longer. The second thing that we've done, and we ask for you to think about this, because people cry about spilled milk in terms of our young people, but if there's spilled milk and you contributed to the spilled milk, you can't cry and say, there's spilled milk.
Right.
So what we're doing, and we're going to ask people to do something, all of us have something to give in terms of reaching beyond our grasp. Those in Scott's generation can give to the people in the younger generation. But we have those in the younger generation, like the law student from Howard's Law School here, can give to the younger generation, like the young man who's at the University of South Carolina there. And so we have to reach beyond our grasp because the state of our condition is perilous right now. Some of us may be comfortable. Indeed, we have the degrees, the cars and the houses and the clothes that set in the status. But it is an illusion, and we can't be drunk with the wines of this world. So we have to realize where we are. And one thing that we're doing in the Thurgood Marshall Center in the next 6 months you're going to see come into play is the Thurgood Marshall Society. And the Thurgood Marshall Society is a program that we're putting in place to bring high school youth through the center at the 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. And then we're going to teach them about the rule of law. We're going to teach them about Thurgood Marshall and Charles Hamilton Houston. And then we're going to integrate them into disciplines, how they should carry themselves, bring them into the courts, bring the lawyers, bring the business people to meet the young people. But more importantly, a young man from Prince George's County will meet a young woman from Montgomery County, will meet a young person from Southeast DC, from Northern Virginia. So our kids will create a network consistent with the life and legacy of Thurgood Marshall. Yes. So that's a big thing, and we're hoping that it will grow. I wanted to thank you all. And Scott, I really hope you heard that, because that would be yet another organizational effort that you can step up to the plate with some other partners of law firms. Because seriously, we're going to the Claude Bailey's, we're going to the other law partners and to the corporations, because we have to go to the place where our young people have some hope and have some connection in an intergeneration context, and we make a difference in their lives. I want to thank you for coming out this evening. As the young lady said, wherever she went, I do a radio show. And it's called Love-thology. And it's at Love-thology. You don't know nothing about that. The good Kappa man that you are. But it's called Love-thology, and it's about, it's not a misnomer, it's about us loving ourselves. And when we begin to love ourselves, that's everything. And so it's this evening from 8 to 10, so I'm going to ask permission to be excused.
Thank you, Donald, and thank you for the work that you are putting in to help create these scholarship programs. When we sat around as a board and talked about what we wanted to do in our mission going forward, that was one of the first things, and Donald was really strong in spearheading that and getting us on board. So thank you very much for your work. Have a great show, even though you're leaving us. Okay? Who does that? We're going to continue on with our rundown. I'm really excited to bring up and introduce our Mistress of Ceremonies. So on the personal side, Miss Barbara Arnwine has been woman to woman, an amazing mentor to me. We first met when I was working with Roland Martin as a producer on his show. And the fire that she brings to audiences, the information, the knowledge, the demand that she puts on the people to recognize what's going on and to pay attention is amazing. So I'm so glad that I was able to introduce you. She is the founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition, internationally renowned for her contributions on critical justice issues, including the passage of the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1991 and the 2006 reauthorization of provisions of the Voting Rights Act. She is strong when it comes to pushing knowledge and information on the Voting Rights Act. She is the board vice chair of the National Coalition to Abolish the Death Penalty and serves on the board of directors of Moms Rising, an independent sector. She also hosts a show on WOL called Igniting Change that you can hear her 2 or 3 a week. Everybody's got doing shows now to get one. Right. And so also includes work in women's rights, immigration rights. We're going to talk about that tonight. Judicial diversity, criminal justice reform, racial profiling, healthcare disparities, and so much more. So please welcome, help me in welcoming Ms. Barbara Arnwine to the podium, please.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Wow, what a great evening it is for us to be here to celebrate this amazing occasion. Thank you, Ebony, for that warm introduction. I am so proud of you. Every time I see you, I just grin. My chest, gets all, huffy because I'm just so proud of your leadership, your dedication, your speaking truth to a new generation. So I just really want to thank you for this honor, of being the mistress of ceremonies this evening, and for the opportunity to be part of a critical fireside discussion on the legacy, my goodness, of Justice Thurgood Marshall, talking about the rule of law and the road forward. Because one thing we know as black folks, there's one thing that we know: we don't want to go back. We're not about making anything great again, because there was never any great period for us until, unless we rose up and was trying to throw something off our backs. So we definitely are very happy to be talking in this moment about how we move forward. Tonight will be a reminder of the critical role the Thurgood Marshall Center for Service and Heritage plays in shaping our next and current generation. I go to the center a lot for various events, have sponsored events there, and let me tell you, there's nothing more beautiful when I see the young people walking through and talking and doing their programming, the interchanges that we've had in the hallways. What a wonderful, wonderful center. And it is great that we're all here today tonight to support it. But first, tonight could not have been possible but for the generosity of one man. That is a Mr. A. Scott Bolden. Let me take my time and just say these words real carefully. He is the managing partner. Say it. The managing partner.
Say it again.
The managing partner.
One more time.
All right now. The managing partner.
All right.
Rita Smith, one of our nation's most prominent law firms.
Woo.
And yes, everybody hearkens to his call and to his direction and his leadership. He is one of the most distinguished trial and white-collar defense lawyers, handling high-profile matters in and outside the nation's capital and on the national and international stage. His leadership is reflected in the strong and dedicated team who surrounds him and are committed to advancing the rule of law. As a frequent and sought-after legal commentator on CNN, MSNBC, and TV One, he is always, and I love this word, firm in his convictions. Now, some of us got some other words from sat on these panels with him about that firm, but he is firm in his convictions and is committed to bringing balanced perspectives. You see, we often were on the Roland Martin show together, and we would discuss all kinds of issues, and we're going crazy with watching what's happening in this country right now and not having that platform. He is the former chair of the D.C. Chamber of Commerce and the D.C. Democratic Party, and has earned significant recognition from professional and community organizations. In 2017, he was awarded the Champion for Children Award from the National Black Child Development Institute, the Founders Award from the Federation of Democratic Women, and the Legacy Board Award from the Recreation Wish List Committee. And in 2016, the UNCF Mass Ball Leadership, a well-recognized, what you mean, well-recognized? Well-recognized. Oh, my goodness. Howard University School of Law alum, Mr. Bolden's influence and perspective has earned him not only a place in the halls of legal history, but his desire to rightly divide the precepts of law and change communities has earned him a place amongst top legal influencers. Please join me in welcoming the managing partner of the prestigious Reed Smith firm, Attorney A. Scott Bolden.
My remarks are going to be shorter than Barbara's introduction. God bless you. My sister, my friend, who would be battling for us on Roland Martin's show, and sometimes battling Roland Martin. If you've ever been on the show, or, come on now, you know, been interviewed by him, he's going to tell you all about it. I used to tell Roland, I said, Roland, you know, this is a legal issue, and I'm the only lawyer in the room. So why are you arguing with me? And he referred to my fraternity, what suit I had on, but he never answered the question. Tell him he never answered that question, and you would rather tell him myself, without a doubt. Let me just thank, on behalf of the 1,900 lawyers I work with at Reed Smith and all around the world, the 29 offices, thank you, Thurgood Marshall, for allowing us to lead and support and to be here with you to hear this dialogue. You know, my team that is volunteering tonight, they don't make me look good, they make me look good. They make me good, rather, okay? And without them, we would not be here. And so let's give them a big round of applause who are there. Shout out to Stanley. They go through a wall for the firm and me here in Washington, and I'd go through a wall for them too, and that's a relationship. I am really excited about tonight. You know, I know the fireside chat is going to be awesome. Robert Jenkins, the chairman, my good lay brother, my frat brother, my partner, my referral partner when I got something in Virginia and have no idea what's going on. Right. Let's give Robert a big round of applause. Well respect.
The Commonwealth.
To my wife, who allows me to practice law with passion and shares me with you and everybody else when I'm never home, and still loves me more than I could ever return, and my love for her. Please give Erica Martin Bolden a big round of applause. Ride or die. Most times. Every once in a while she'd tell me, Ben, I ain't doing that. I ain't doing that. I said, baby, I just need you to do this for me. Not just, I ain't doing that. I'll tell you right now. If they come for you, I'm going to tell them where you are. If you nobody in Clyde, it's going to be Clyde.
Round it down with Claude.
That's right. You know, she got a list of about 3 lawyers she going to call right after telling me, I ain't doing that. But God bless her. And she said, you want it. Man, that's a conflict. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a conflict. If she call you, call me. Okay? Call me back first. And if you call her, then they call me. Call me first. I'll tell you everything you need to know if you talk to her. Okay? I'll tell you right now. to Barbara, my partner in crime, and I don't know if Dr. Chavis is here or not, my longtime client and leader of NNPA, one of the most important organizations we have. Around the globe. Black newspapers, black publishers, tell the news and say the news, the black people and community people, when no one else will report that news, and they tell you the truth and they report it better. Amen. Without a doubt. You know, Barbara, I know who I am. Every day I stay in the moment of who I am and what I represent to history, current and the future. I know I'm the managing partner of the DC office of Reed Smith. I know I'm a Morehouse man, and I know I'm a Howard Law graduate. I know I was trained by the best. People called J. Clay Smith and Henry Brisbane and Benjamin E. Mays, who was alive when I was at Morehouse, who I spoke with, and the civil rights leaders who taught us in a trial laboratory on Saturday mornings, J. Dugas and others, William Bryant, first black judge, Luke C. Moore, first black sheriff, not sheriff, U.S. Marshal of D.C. These were the cats that trained me, Ben. And so I'm in the moment. I know who I am. And my hero, my father, a civil rights lawyer, leader, and one who was a retired judge who I still care about what he thinks of me and my career. And he's still my #1 advisor. I mention my father because he grew up poor and sometimes homeless over his years, but he became a lawyer, Ben. And became a lawyer because one day someone gave him a book in a public school about Thurgood Marshall. He had no context of Thurgood in the 40s and 50s because he was poor and sometimes homeless, and he became a lawyer because of Thurgood Marshall. And today I stand here on not only my father's shoulders, but in front of the picture of Thurgood at a $1.5 billion law firm that generates in D.C. significant millions of that. At the title and with the title of managing partner. I know who I am. And yet, the reality is I would be nothing in this position if it weren't for organizations like Thurgood Marshall Center. And for me sharing our resources, our lawyers, our volunteers, with who we are and define what we represent, in the sense that our lawyers must be more than lawyers. They must be social engineers. Black, white, yellow, brown. If they're in D.C., they got to be social engineers. It's got to be more than them getting great results for very wealthy clients, generating revenue. They got to be in the community. They got enough to share. And we got to share. And we got to integrate this firm. And tonight is one of the greatest integration days of my life because you are here. Y'all missed that. We have more black people in Pittsburgh is a good thing, right? And so I'm honored to be here. I'm sorry I took up too much time, but Ebony, but that is the moment. And then to be here with Ben, my good friend, who was on the front lines, who's our version of him on the front line when it ain't easy. You know, when you represent our community, it ain't easy. TV, he do interviews. I mean, boy, that's why I love to be like him, right? Representing our community is special. In any event, though, if I missed anybody, I know you are important. I love and respect you. And tell me later, and I'll mention it when I come back up here, okay? In any event, thank you again very much. I don't know who's coming up after me, but I will tell you this. It is an honor to lead this firm, but it's an honor to have you as our guest in this firm tonight. Thank you.
I'm going to have Ms. Arwine come up and introduce the president of Thurgood Marshall Center, Ms. Thomasina Yearwood. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott, for those amazing remarks. Beautiful. Shirley Chisholm once said, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas." And this woman coming to the stage is a strong example of leadership, vision, and steadfastness. You see, people get it wrong all the time. They think being the leader is the fun job. They don't know the burdens that a leader carries on their shoulder. And when you meet someone like Thomasina W. Yearwood, you know that you're blessed to be in the presence of leadership. Thomasina W. Yearwood is the president of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust, Incorporated, where for nearly 2 decades, she has safely guarded and advanced the organization's mission to educate, empower, and encourage children, youth, and families to pursue equality, social and economic justice through provocative dialogue and collective action. Ms. Yearwood has facilitated collective efforts through cultivating meaningful relationships with community and faith-based partners, government leadership, agencies, businesses, and the community at large. These efforts provide educational programs that help the members of the community celebrate their rich cultural history and meet the everyday challenges in their lives. Ms. Yearwood has coined TMCT's slogan, cornerstone of the community for the next 100 years. Please welcome Thomasina Yearwood, CEO of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
It is certainly an honor and a pleasure to be here this evening with all of you. I want to thank again A. Scott Bolden for supporting our efforts. I remember when I met with A. Scott and I said, you know, we certainly need your support. And he says, well, don't have any money, but I can make sure that you have an event that will bring money to the organization. So that is very important, and we thank you so much for that effort and support, A. Scott. Being at the Thurgood Marshall Center has been a labor of love for me. I've been there since June of 2001. And one of the things that I think that we must always remember is that our youth are our future. And that is one of the things that we support in the community at the Thurgood Marshall Center. We are on a new movement in terms of the Thurgood Marshall Society. And so, as Donald Temple mentioned, we will be supporting our youth. We will be assisting and undergirding them in their future. We have to take a position that we support our youth, because if we don't, what will our future be? So that is why it is so important that we at the Thurgood Marshall Center are the cornerstone for the next 100 years. We want to make a difference in the lives of these young people. Again, this is the first African-American YMCA in the country, historic landmark building. I need all of you to continue to let people know about this building, because we are making an impact. We are keeping statistics. Last year we had over 40,000 individuals cross the doorsteps of our institution. That is a big impact to the community. And it says a lot. Thank you. It says a lot about what we're doing, and we want to continue to improve each and every day. One of the things that I thought was important for us to do tonight was to give history on the center. Being the first African-American YMCA, Rosenwald was very involved in the funding and support in building this building. So we're going to now take a view of a video that will give you a better idea of the history of the Thurgood Marshall Center. Thank you.
Why tonight is so important. It really is, and we're about to get to the meat and the conversation that so many of us are eager to have. I do want to first say, and one thing, you never know how precious life is. So one reason why our numbers are very low tonight is not because of the RSVPs, it is because there was a tragic accident on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, and I was in the back checking the numbers, and so the truck driver died. The bridge has been closed down all day. There's a lot of other things that are coming from it. So, which is a reminder that while we are here, to not just live our life to the fullest and do what we want to do, but also think about the lives around us, what legacy that we want to leave for other people. And so when we see this video, we think about Thurgood, why we are here in this room, the legacy that he has left. Let's not forget sometimes to go home a little earlier than you think. So impact is necessary. Dr. Chavis will be joining us in a little while. He was flying in and has been trying to rush, and I said, brother, don't rush. There'll be nobody else rushing. Get here safely, because we want to pull from you and hear from you. But I first want to have Ms. Arnwine come join me at the stage. At the podium for the fireside chat. I'm going to have you come on and sit down with me. In addition to that, you can choose a chair. I would like to also bring up can I tell you how much I love my board? I really do. I love the Thurgood Marshall the Center Trust Board, because we come together, we duke it out, and we have great ideas, and we hash and we rehash, and there's some brilliant minds that sit in this, and I heard you Warner Sessions. So there's some brilliant minds that sit, and it's an honor to sit under them and to go back and forth with them in exchange of ideas. So part of who I want to join us tonight for our chat is going to be our chair, Mr. Robert L. Jenkins. Please join us. He is an amazing attorney in criminal defense matters, also a major legal commentator. You've seen him all over MSNBC, a major lecturer. And I say he kind of does things like this silent grace. Like he doesn't really make a loud noise. He kind of creeps in, and then you like, oh, he's saying something, and he just kind of sets the tone. So you kind of need that when you have a temple in the room. So I just want to thank you. But more than that, it is a pleasure to bring up the man of the hour. Yes. And when I tell you we were thinking about people to bring on, this was an easy one. Easy. Who else? Who else do you send? What other man do you send? Who else do you bring into the room besides a Benjamin Crump, who is strongly not just following in the steps of a Thurgood Marshall, but picking up the reins of a Thurgood Marshall and bringing it to the very steps and attention of people in the community. People that when they saw him, when you saw this man who's always been working behind the scenes enter into a national platform, people were like, who is this? And many of us who had not seen a face like this were proud. When I tell you I see you and I just smile ear to ear, and whatever you say I repeat to other people. Because you've given us a new vocabulary, you're giving us a new vision, and you are a truth teller, leading a powerful firm, the Ben Crump Law Firm, which is amazing. You saw him in his role with Trayvon Martin, Martin Lee Anderson Boot Camp, Janine Liggins, State of Oklahoma versus Daniel Holtzclaw and Robbie Tolan cases, showing a legacy built on the idea that the Constitution, y'all, applies to everyone at every level of society. Right. Can that be a headline? Right. That's real news. His passion for advocacy has given him the privilege to fight for justice on behalf of the marginalized people in our country, and a calling to which he remains dedicated to. He breaks so many barriers. His list of accolades is longer than the sheet that I have up here, and it is a true honor to have you here with us to lead this discussion on Thurgood Marshall, rule of law. Please welcome me, help me welcome Ben Crump to... And Cynthia, promote everybody. Before we begin our discussion, I do want to, how many people watch TV One? Yes? Okay. Well, Mr. Crump he's done many different shows, and you've seen him as a guest, but there's a docu-series that has now launched, and I believe it's the second, or am I 2 episodes behind in the docu-series? 2 episodes behind in the docu-series. I watched the first one that is amazing, and we're gonna play the trailer to this new TV One docu-series. And we wanna make sure you support him in everything that this man is doing. Because if we don't support each other, no one else will. He is so important. And even why so more this day do we really need to go back and not just read his speeches, but his opinions and study his impact in social justice.
Certainly, and again, I want to say to President Earwood and the Thurgood Marshall Center Foundation, how honored I'm here to be with you all this evening. Ebony, you know, it's good to talk to you not at 5:30 in the morning. Because anybody who's been on Roland Martin's show, you know, Ebony calling you at 5:15. Okay, you went to 5:30, we'll make sure you. So it is very good to be with you, and to my brother Scott Bolden. I know we've said a lot about Scott, but really, Scott doesn't get anything out of this other than knowing that he is giving back to his community. Right. I'm sure he doesn't get any bonuses.
I do even more.
To you and Erica, thank you again, and not just Kevin Judd, past president of the National Bar Association. And I know, just like everybody acknowledged, Scott has given his facility, this beautiful facility, to the National Bar anytime we ask. Yes. Matter of fact, it might be scary. We start to take it for granted, so Scott, we don't want you to take off when you're just to remind us that. And then I remember this, and then I answer your question, Ebony. We were doing a documentary on the first black astronaut, Robert Lawrence, and we asked Scott, the filmmakers, because I'm doing a lot of TV stuff these days, and we were looking for a location for Charlie Bolden to be able to participate in this documentary. And we called Scott, and Scott said, my Boulay brother, Crump, you only have to ask twice. And we came and took over their office for the whole day doing that documentary. I never got to thank you for that, but
I wasn't even here, remember?
Yeah, you weren't here.
I was on the road.
So when they release it in Hollywood, we give you a great shout out, Scott.
God bless you.
All right. So to that end, ladies and gentlemen, Thurgood Marshall is my personal hero. Like Scott's father, I'm a country boy from rural North Carolina, a little town called Lumberton. You may remember coming up on I-95. And 95 South, you're right. And my story, Ebony, has been told a lot and documented a lot. We first integrated with all deliberate speed in North Carolina in 1978. I was in the 5th grade. We would get bused across the tracks to the new school in the white community where they had the new books, the new facilities, you know, all the new technology. And what was profound to us little black children, Barbara, was you got over there and you really understood that children come together. Racism is a taught experience. So you had the little black children, little white children playing together, be 9 years old, 10 years old. And one day, it became clear to me that there were some differences. All the black children would have to get free lunches because it was based on your parents' income, and we didn't have money to buy our lunches. But you had reduced lunches. If your parents made a certain amount, you can get reduced lunches. Some of the white children had reduced lunches, but a large percentage of them had a la carte lunches. That means you could come and buy whatever you wanted to buy that day, and they would get all the stuff children wanted, like hamburgers, cheeseburgers, pizza, milkshake. You know, you're 9, 10 years old, that's what you want. you don't want what the superintendent of schools thought was of nutritional value. And so, Attorney Jenkins, we were standing in that long line. It'll always be a long line. There was a young white girl, and she was with one of the black girls from the government housing project that I grew up in, and they came over to me and my two friends, Kevin Cooper and Charlie Floyd, and we were there at the back of the line, hungry, like saying, wow, this is a long line. And they started talking with us, and Keenan and the young white girl, they said, well, we're going to eat a la carte. And the young white girl said, yeah, you all can eat a la carte with us too. And she said, I'll pay. And she took out $100 bill. And to me, Barbara, my mother worked 2 jobs. She worked at the hotel, and she also worked at the shoe factory, which was the big economic engine in our little town, Converse. And I remember literally us challenging her, like, that's not your $100 bill, because my mother would have to work all week to get $100. I couldn't fathom a little 9-year-old girl having a $100 bill. And she said, yes, my money, I can do what I want with it. It's my allowance. I get it every 2 weeks. And to prove it, she did go buy all of us lunch. And I remember riding home on the school bus that day, going back to the south side, and I said, I wonder why people on a certain side of the tracks have it so good, and people on my side of the tracks have it so challenging. And I remember, Ebony, my mother saying, because of Brown versus the Board of Education and a man named Thurgood Marshall was the reason we got to come to the new school with the good technology, the new buildings. And I said, I'm going to be like Thurgood Marshall because I want to help people from my community and people who look like me have a better life. And from that day to this one, I've still been trying to live up to that legacy of Thurgood Marshall, and that's why I'm here today. Right?
And so when we begin to examine, we talked earlier about what we're seeing in the news, right? So dealing with immigration policies, what's happening at the border, and the president blaming Democrats, and we're seeing families separated. And then we're also looking at Supreme Court decisions that have come out, and what's happening with voter rolls in Ohio, states being able to now kick voters off rolls. What do we begin to say about these things, and how can we begin to challenge them? And I would like each of the panelists to kind of talk about that.
Well, first of all, what a pleasure it is to be with you, Ben, because you are just so amazing. I was telling Ben that I went to the Rainbow Push Coalition convention last week in Chicago. And we were in a room, a big, room that got a little bit too hot. And they started passing out fans. And the fans had Ben Crump's picture on it. Talk about his buffer. It was his advertising. And I just put my hand down. And I said, he is too much.
Did you save one, Barbara? Did you bring one back?
Oh, yeah, I have one. I don't know why I didn't bring it tonight.
Okay, Ben. Okay.
I made sure I brought it back. But Ben is just, amazing. We all, Thurgood Marshall was, I think, for every one of us who went to law school, who were determined to become, lawyers, to do justice work, he was our inspiration. I mean, because what he said to us, and Constance Baker Motley, that incredible, Spotswood, that incredible generation, what they said to us is that it was possible.
Right.
That we could do it, because look what they did. Reading about Thurgood, having to, to hide himself because people were looking to kill him when he would be in some of these backwood towns. I mean, he just, I can just tell you, he touched my heart in a way that never can be forgotten, because he was a light that guided us through all of those horrible cases we had to study in law school, all those crazy professors, but we had a professor who actually stood up and told us that if old man Duke, I went to Duke University, school law, but if old man Duke had his way, none of us blackbirds would be there. Okay? So, it was knowing there was a Thurgood and seeing his dissents and case after case and reading those dissents that gave us the inspiration to know that we were in fact empowered and anointed to be lawyers one day. Right. So, he was, you can't even begin to talk about him. I think about the decision in the University of Michigan affirmative action cases. And when you read, the reasoning by Justice O'Connor in those cases, remember what she said about Thurgood, after his passing. She said that he helped her to see life differently. That she never really understood what it was like to be poor. And that he helped her to understand poverty. That he helped her not to just, not numerically, but to really understand what it meant, to the heart of a person and what human dignity was about. And that he helped her to really understand what racial, injustice looked like. And when she wrote that opinion in Grutter, it was a Valentine to Thurgood Marshall. Understand when she would not find affirmative action as illegal, where she constitutionally enshrined affirmative action for decades to come, it was a tribute to Marshall. So in these times, the challenge to us, I think, as lawyers, as people in this community, is where do we find that kind of courage that he had? Mm-hmm. Where do we find that kind of drive that he had? Right. I mean, when you got a president and a Senate and a House, and you have over 30 plus state legislatures and governorships that are held by people who view our people in such negative ways, right, who do such damage to our lives through mass incarceration, through, all of these, you just, when you go back and you look at Thurgood, remember he started off doing these criminal justice cases. And he talks about how, in his first year of practice, how he took any case that would come through the door. And how, he evolved into, under the tutelage of Charles Hamilton Houston, how he evolved into this amazing civil rights lawyer. But, he did those criminal justice cases. And some of them were just horrifying to read about. Where you read about people who, where they shot and killed young black men instead of, or even arresting them. And then the sheriffs bragged about it. And how he still had to the poor black men who lived through those assassinations, he still had to represent them before juries and hostile judges. So I think, that kind of courage is what we need and what we lack so much, that kind of personal integrity, that ability to stand in the breach and the gap when you are dealing with people who are desperate, who have been treated wrongfully, who are innocent without evidence, right? Who, when you see this, it's the Brian Stevensons of our time. We know that's Thurgood walking. When you look at so many people, all I'm just gonna say is that I think one thing that we can do as African Americans is that we always need to, in this immigration battle that is so wrong, in this mass incarceration fight that is so wrong, in what's happening with the destruction of public education under this administration, the destruction of civil rights, the destruction of voting rights. Right. They're taking the wrong position in North Carolina, the wrong position in Texas, the wrong position in the Husted case that just came out last week in the voter purging case in Ohio. That what we have to do is that we got to remember that we got to be like Thurgood. Brave, intellectually, legally excellent, and committed to justice, because the Bible tells us what? That the Lord our God loves justice.
Absolutely, absolutely. Robert.
Yes. You know, Ben, when I was listening to you, it took me back. You said it was 1978 in North Carolina, and you were in the fourth grade.
Fourth grade, going to the fifth, yeah.
I was in the third grade at that time. I was growing up in Charleston, South Carolina. Public housing. I know poor. And you talk about with all deliberate speed and what the Brown v. Board of Education decision meant. Well, the first time in Charleston, South Carolina, as a young black male, I ever sat in a classroom with a white student. It was 1984.
Wow.
1984. In high school. I was a freshman in high school. Still in a majority black school. And the only reason why I had classmates of mine who didn't share the same skin complexion was because I did well enough in school to be in the advanced classes. And that's where the white students were. So I didn't experience any type of integration in any social realm, education. The church I went to was all black. When I went to visit my mother, who was a housekeeper in a hotel, I saw nothing but black people. When I looked around my neighborhood, I saw nothing but black people. In fact, I was misled to believe that Charleston was a black city. Because the only white people I saw were on TV. They were on TV. They were either doing the local news, or they were in soap operas or something like that. Thurgood Marshall, what he represented to me was just what you said, Barbara. He did it, and so could I. Because of him, he was an inspiration to all of us. I went to law school wanting to be a trial lawyer, because I wanted to be with Thurgood. I wanted to make a difference. I grew up in a neighborhood in which black people, in my view, were being preyed upon. Being arrested. I have many family members, friends, childhood friends, high school friends, who didn't enjoy the same life that I have been blessed to enjoy. So I felt a sense of responsibility because of Thurgood, that there was something that was given to me and something that I owed to my community to give back. When I think about the response to your question, Ebony, I think we all in this room, every one of us, whether or not you had the occasion to go to law school or not, you owe it to identify those same type of issues that Thurgood did during his time. Yes. Not everything that Thurgood did during his time was popular. There were forces, there were voices that told him to slow down. Not now.
Right.
Hold on.
Yep.
Very much so.
Later, we'll get to that. We should do this first, as opposed to that. And Thurgood didn't listen to those voices. He wasn't afraid to embrace unpopular issues. So when we talk about immigration, when we talk about mass incarceration, when we talk about the death penalty, we as a people, particularly those in this room who have been given so much, we can't shy away from those issues because Thurgood wouldn't. Because Thurgood wouldn't.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
On the issue of immigration, Ebony, I think it really comes down to all of these matters of social injustice. And Barbara, I coined it the intellectual justification of discrimination. Because that's all it is when you get right to the crux of the matter. They're discriminating against poor brown and black people. You don't see the people from Europe being stopped at the border. You don't see the Russians being stopped at the border. You know, it's only black and brown people that's stopping at the borders. And this intellectual justification, it goes far beyond just immigration. Immigration. I know when the NBA, Kevin, Judd, and Barbara, you know, all of us would try to have these town hall meetings where they were killing little black boys, and the police were always exonerated, no matter how objective the evidence was, whether it's Michael Brown with his hands up in Ferguson in broad daylight, unarmed, whether it's, you know, Laquan McDonald in Chicago, Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Philando Castile. I'm talking about all these things on video. I mean, just vivid. Sandra Bland. The list goes on and on. Terrence Crutcher in Oklahoma, you know, with his hands up on video, and the white policewoman shoot him, and the jury still acquit him, and they come with this qualified immunity and try to limit the amount of recovery. All it is that intellectual justification of discrimination, and I submit to you all, it's bad how they kill Trayvon Martin. It's bad how they kill Michael Brown, Barbara. It's bad how they kill 12-year-old Tamir Rice in Cleveland, Ohio, playing, you know, by himself on the playground. Yana Jones in Detroit. I mean, it's just terrible. But I submit to you all, it's far worse how they kill our children, our young people, every day in courtrooms in every city, in every state, all across America with these trumped up felony convictions. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. Just go sit in the back of any courtroom in America and watch how justice is being administered, Jenkins. I mean, it's, you see little white children come up there and they get the slap on the wrist. But then you have little black children, you know, little Shaniqua and little Junebug, you know, we never ever get the benefit of possibility, the benefit of the doubt, the benefit of consideration. Barbara, they take us home, our children, and they fingerprint them, handcuff them, and then they saddle them with this cross that they have to bear for the rest of their lives on their backs. And when you think about a young minority with a felony conviction trying to get a good job to be able to sustain his family, keep a roof over his head, or food on the table, the lights on. I mean, it is daunting because they have this game, these collateral consequences. You know, not only can you not vote, not only do you not get to serve in the military, not only do you not get to serve on a jury, but you can't get certification to be a school teacher, to be a nurse, to be a real estate agent, can't get student loans. I mean, you can't even be a beautician. You can't get certification to do hair. And in some states, if you are a convicted felon and you spend time in prison, you can't even get life insurance. I mean, it is daunting for young people of color when they get this felony conviction. And so what we have to do is try to make sure our people understand this is a game of chess, not checkers. It's strategic. You got to understand, like Thurgood, this symbol, this system of discrimination with the segregation of schools, we got to we got to attack. It got to be an all-out war to attack this intellectual justification of discrimination, because like Dr. King said, just because it's legal, that don't make it right. You know, they keep saying, well, it's legal when these cops kill us. They didn't violate any policy or regulations. Well, Dr. King said that don't make it right. Everything that Hitler did to the Jews in Germany was legal. That didn't make it right. Slavery was legal. That didn't make, segregation was legal. That didn't make it right. So here, the Thurgood Marshall first annual Thurgood Marshall Fireside Chat. I think we have to have that spirit of Thurgood, who, you know, they teach us in law school, you have to follow precedents. They just always say, precedent, precedent, precedent. They try to indoctrinate it in your mind. Well, thank God Thurgood Marshall didn't follow precedents and accept precedents. He challenged it, because precedents meant we all would be slaves. And so I submit to you, The hell with precedents. You argue what's right.
You know, it's, I teach law every once in a while. You know, I like to, keep my feet in the teaching arena. And the first thing you have to do in teaching law is to really teach the truth about the Constitution. Because people, the Constitution actually embedded and promoted white supremacy. And there's two constants in this society. Since it was, if you look at the United States, since it became a government, and even before that, there are two constants. One is that whites are always advantaged through white supremacy, one way or the other, even if you're poor. And blacks have always been subordinated. And the two realities of our legal framework is that it has never failed to do those two things. And when you look at and you understand, how we perverted and distorted the law, then you really understand Thurgood's spirit even more. Because he knew that. And he had a way of, the reality for those of us who do civil rights, who do racial justice work, is that we're constantly torn because we have this document called the Constitution, and we have these statutes called laws that we have to use to argue for justice. And on the other hand, we know that those same laws, that same Constitution, creates the problems that we're fighting against. And it's a contradiction in our practice that we have to, fight against the Cruikshank decisions. We have to fight against, all the adverse, law, or now we got to fight against Shelby, and we got to fight against Husted, and all these decisions that basically, once again, enshrine black subordination. And that's all they're doing. I mean, this is not, this is not simple. I mean, this is not, that complex, that there's two operations. And when you say, wait a minute, how do you take the plain language of the NVRA, the National Voter Registration Act, and Husted, that says that you cannot use the failure to vote to purge people?
Explain that, Bob.
Okay. But, the National Voter Registration Act was created to fight voter suppression by making it easier for people to register and to participate in the vote. And in fact, one of the most telling things about the NVRA, the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, because I was here, we wrote a lot of that in my office, a lot of the law, and worked on that law for years. And one of the things that's, really, really critical is that when you look at the law, it covers 44 states. Why doesn't it cover all the states in the Union? Why are there 6 states that are exempted? It's because those 6 states have what's called Election Day registration, meaning that you could show up during the election and register. You could register on the spot. Imagine all the people who show up at the polls. We estimate it's like 10% of the voting electorate who show up at polls to discover that they're not registered. And what Election Day registration does, or same day registration as it's called also, is that it just takes away that problem. Because all they got to do is register. Maryland has EDR right now. Doing the primaries. But guess what? Go on the website and try to find it. It's not even advertised. I don't understand it. And when I went to the polls to vote on Sunday, I took my soul to the poll to vote on Sunday with my son and other family members, because we do it that way. And when I got to the polling site, they actually had the place where people could register. But who would have known? But for those 6 states that had EDR, that's how powerful same-day, election day registration is, that they were exempted from the requirements of the NVRA. You know it as the motor voter law. Because it's when you go to register your car, what do you get? What do you get asked? Are you registered? You get offered the opportunity to register. That's because of the NVRA. If you are poor, if you are receiving public assistance, and you go to a public, to get WIC, or you go to for AFDC or whatever, you are required under Section 7 of that law to be given a voter registration form and to be required to register. We have had to sue almost 35 states because they refuse to follow that one. They don't want people who are in poverty to vote. And we have had to, in fact, you think I'm kidding, the LDF just finished the litigation in Louisiana on this, and the NVRA was what? I said 1993. Shows you how resistant the states are. And so the Husted case, basically what, Reverend Jackson asked me to head up something called the National Commission for Voter Justice, and we're having hearings all over the country, and everybody keeps talking about this voter purging. And what's happening is that people are registering to vote, and then states are sometimes with no reason whatsoever are sending people these little funny looking postcards that say, do you still live where you live? And most people look at it and it looks like junk mail. And so people, 60%, it's estimated 40 to 60% of people who receive those cards never return them. The failure to return the card within 2 months is interpreted by the states as you don't live there anymore. And they then move you to what's called the inactive list. And in some states, if you don't vote, and this is what was at stake in Ohio, is that if once you got that card, if you didn't vote within 2 subsequent federal elections, the presidential election and the midterm, then you were taken off the voter rolls. But let me be clear, Ohio's one version of it. But when we had the hearing in Georgia, we had one plaintiff in a lawsuit testify that in November of 2017, last November, they had to file a lawsuit because the state of Georgia overnight removed 320,000 people from the voting rolls.
Barbara, I want to hop back on what you're talking about because it leads to a even larger question, which is we're talking about the rule of law. Well, the World Justice Project kind of defines that and gives it 4 parts. So we have accountability, just laws, open government, accessible and impartial dispute resolution. So we know all the issues that we're talking about, whether it's voting rights, whether it's issues with in criminal justice system, redlining, which is still a huge issue, right? How do we become a nation that abides by the rule of law? What do we do? Because it seems like now some laws are just being made on the spot. Some stuff you don't know whether it's policy, law, what's going on. It's so much to digest. And so it can become a ball of confusion to many who don't, it's hard to sift through all the information. I don't even like to use the term fake news because that's the vocabulary that I feel like someone tries to push on us. However, what do we do in this time? What is solution-based? Where do we go from here? Because these are some of the ideas that within the society, and I want to hear from you, who is our chair, what we can do and begin to implement, and how we can push back. And I'll start with you, Crumb.
Ebony, I think, and I get asked that question so much as I go around the country, what can we do with, you know, in this town, a couple of blocks over, you got a man who doesn't respect the rule of law. Many question if he even understands the rule of law. And they say, but we feel powerless. You know, they voted a man that seemed like they're happy with what he's doing. And many, especially the millennials, they feel so distant that their vote won't make a difference. What I continue to try to tell them, Ebony, is it's a lot what Dr. King and John Lewis and them were doing back in the civil rights era. Jenkins, in towns like where we came from, you first start trying to affect your local community, because many of those races impact your life on a much deeper level than even the federal government. And so you start understanding that the DA and the judge and the mayor are crucial to the life of your family, especially your children, especially the DA and who the police chief is. Yes. I mean, they're going to determine who they're going to prosecute and who they're going to give the benefit of the doubt. And in many of the local elections, Barbara, Kevin Judge, the elections are literally decided between a few hundred, maybe a few thousand votes. You know, Atlanta's mayor was decided by 750 votes. I mean, and these DAs win normally by less than 2,000 votes. So all we got to do is get our people to vote in their local elections and make a difference. The only thing that could stop this guy at the White House, I believe, is this midterm election. If we get out and we elect enough congressmen and the House and the Senate to take one of the houses back. And that's within our grasp. That's something real they can see and can understand when you have somebody in your congressional race who's running, and even though you may be the minority in there, but your vote can be critical mass. And the last thing I'll say is this. I am reminded, Barbara, I don't know if you were around here because you were, there's so many things, and I give you a lot of credit, Barbara. People don't know how much you've done for us. But Jenkins, in the formation of the Congressional Black Caucus, some of you all remember, their motto was very simple, Ebony. It was no permanent friends,
that's right,
no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. And our interest is our community, our children. That's our interest. And so we got to be able to say to either candidate running in that congressional race, we can decide who wins this race. Now, y'all got the majority. The African-American vote is a minority. But we got to get on some fundamental issues that we believe in. You know, we often give the NRA all that power because they are single-issue voters. Well, hell, I submit that, I submit there are some things in our congressional districts we should be single-issue on. And I submit to you, it should be our black children, especially our black boys, who they killing on the streets and killing in the courtrooms in epidemic numbers.
Say that slogan again. I missed it.
No permanent friends,
okay.
No permanent enemies, okay. Only permanent interests.
Great. Okay.
And that interest being our children and our future of our children's lives. And so we should say whatever to the DA or the person running for the House of Representatives, we will give you our support. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, but you got to make some assurances to us, and you got to make them public, and they got to be clear. And if you give us these few key issues. We don't care about everything else. It's important, but we got to first deal with the crisis at hand, and that's our children and their futures. And so we make whatever decision, and we swing the election. So that's strategy. It's a game of chess, not checkers.
Well, Ben, you know, I certainly couldn't agree with you more. You know, but it has to start, in my opinion, with us arming ourselves with the knowledge. There are far too many in our community, people who look like us, who don't have some of the basic knowledge about how the system really works. Too many of us don't know how our local school board is even formed, whether it's elected, whether it's appointed. We don't know if the DA is elected or appointed. We don't know what local district we live in. We don't know what congressional district we live in. If we don't begin by arming ourselves with the basic knowledge about how the system works, operates, how can we ever imagine that we can actually impact the system? So we have to start there, and that's where we as a people have to take on some responsibility. I'm all well and fine and understand that we can point a lot of fingers as to why we are where we are and why we have not made as much progress as what we think we ought to have made since we've been here. But we've got to sometimes start and look at ourselves and ask whether or not we are doing enough. And if we don't arm ourselves with the knowledge of how the system works, I just don't think we'll ever really get to where we want to be. So we have to start there. We have to get engaged. We have to learn what the political system that we reside in, how it operates, who's in control, how those resources are being divvied up, what we can do to impact it. Far too often, we just lack that basic knowledge. We have to do something about that.
I so wish, and I'm sorry, Barbara. Before you go on, we have about 5 minutes and we are gonna wrap. This has been so good. It's been so good, and I hope it. And many of you who are even in the law profession know a lot of this, but sometimes you got to hear it again and hear it again, and team and link up with others who are doing something about it. That's why tonight was so important for us. I want our panelists for the Fireside Chat to do a quick wrap. I'm going to give you a minute each. I'm going to start with the woman at the helm.
Well, you know, I just want to, on that, what can we do? There's a lot we can do. You know, the first thing we can do is just love ourselves. You know, and the beauty of Thurgood was that he loved his people. The beauty of Thurgood was the second thing. You got to have a fighting spirit. You got to have a spirit that looks at what's wrong and says it's got to be made right. And that I'm going to use whatever my skill is to force that. Look at the black women in Alabama. Look at the black folks in Alabama who went out there and turned that election. Some folks said, one lady said, I never finished high school. I'm not highly educated, but I have a car. And I gave 100 people rides back and forth to the polls. Another person said, I'm not educated, no college degree, but I picked up the phone and I called everybody I knew and said, go vote. And reminded them when the polls were open and where their poll was the closest to them. You see, if we believe in our children the way we should, the beauty, you know, in my heart is that I know our young people are brilliant. I know they're beautiful. I know they're capable of incredible things. But we don't invest enough in mobilizing them. We talk about the unemployment rate, but we could hire them as interns. We could fund them to be fellows in our communities. So one of the things we've been working on, Ebony, is Millennial Votes Matters program, where we literally train young people between the ages of 17 and 35 how to be voting rights champions in their communities. Guess what they've done? They've registered thousands of people They've educated thousands of people. They've gone into jails and registered people. They have demanded polling sites in the jails. They registered, one student came to me and when we were training her, she kept saying, Miss Armand, I need money. I don't know how to do anything, I gotta have money to run the program. I said, no, baby. I said, before you fundraise, you people raise.
Absolutely.
And that people are your power. And that if you people raise, you will get what you want. Guess what? She went out and she people raised. She now has a contract with her entire school district to register everybody who is 17 turning 18 by November 6th. Right. That's the power of our kids if we believe in them and invest in them. And that's what we need to do. There's so much we can do. And lastly, by plaintiff, my young lady plaintiff,
yes.
Guess what? She got that stupid card and she looked at it and she said, this ain't right. And she said, I wonder what they do when you don't return this thing. That's how she became the lead plaintiff in their case. And guess what? Within weeks of their filing that case, the state of Georgia reinstated 320,000 people back on the road.
Barbara, I just want to thank you so much. Let's give Barbara Arnwine a round of applause. She's a powerful, let me tell you something. You want anybody to introduce you, talk for you, talk with you, about you, you don't want to talk about you the bad way. She can fire it up. We just thank you for the work that you are doing.
Yes.
So when you listen to her show, Ignite Change, it's not just to hear talking heads, but she's really giving you powerful information. So thank you so much. We have about another 3 minutes. Mr. Bolton had to leave, so I want to make sure I tell him we were out at a good time. We didn't mess everything up. We cleaned up and everything was good because his staff is going to tell on us. So we're going to give 1 minute. I'm going to start with our chair, and then I'm going to end with Mr. Crump, and then we'll do a quick call to action and then end everything out. Thank you so much.
Ebony, back in October of 1995, I remember being here in the District of Columbia and having the occasion to attend the Million Man March. And one of the most powerful speeches I've ever heard was given by Minister Louis Farrakhan on that day. And of all the things that he said that day, the message that resonated with me the most as a young man who had just passed the bar exam, graduated from law school here at George Washington University, and was about 10 days away from being sworn into the Virginia State Bar. He told a message about how we all have a role to play. Yes. We all have a contribution to make. And he said it doesn't matter what it is, what organization you choose, what effort you decide to be a part of, be a part of something that is bigger than yourself. Something that is moving toward improving the condition of black people in America. He said he didn't care if it was the local Elks, whether or not it was Kappa Alpha Psi, Alpha Phi Alpha, Alpha Kappa Alpha, AME Church, the Baptist Church. It didn't matter what it was called. The most important thing was that it was bigger than you, and it was moving toward improving the conditions of black people in America. Everyone in this room can do just that. We all can do just that. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to lift the whole elephant. Just one part.
Right.
Just one part.
All right.
Thank you so much. Mr. Crump, final words.
Yes, ma'am. I hearken back to the spirit of Harriet Tubman.
All right,
yes.
You know, when Harriet Tubman was asked by the reporter, why do you continue to go back and risk your life in this hell that we call slavery in the South over and over again? You know, you're free. Why don't you just enjoy yourself and be free? She said, and I thought one of the most profound things I've ever heard said in history. She said, I cannot justify or legitimate me being free while others are in slavery.
Yes.
And that's what we have to do. She said, you know, if other black people are in slavery, how can I feel comfortable being free? And that's how we have to think about it. We're comfortable with living good, but it means nothing if you're not trying to lift as you climb. That's why I like Scott Bolden and Erica and what President Yearwood and them are doing. They're up here on the penthouse level, but they haven't forgot that we need to get others up here on the penthouse level. Other than that, they'll say that's the Negro on the penthouse level who forgot about his people. I mean, and we see it a lot, but that's what I want to leave you with, what Harriet Tubman's mentality was. We cannot justify us being okay if the rest of our people aren't okay. And we see it, Kevin, you know, when we go to the communities and you go to Ferguson and you saw how they were being arrested. Bobby, you remember? I mean, they were living in a war zone in Ferguson. Everybody had tickets from the police. Everybody was getting stopped by the police. And I submit to you, there's a Ferguson in every state.
Yes.
And so that's what our fight is. We can't justify this. We can't even try to justify it, because I'll leave you with this last word. If you try to justify it, you sound a lot like the slave master who tried to justify him being able to oppress blacks and label them as slaves. But by the grace of God, there go I.
Yes. Yeah.
We can never ever forget that we're all in this together.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Let's get how powerful was that? We do not take your visitation lightly at all, or this panel discussion. We are honored to have you here and honored to be graced with the wisdom that you have. Thank you so much. I know I got on your nerves, but it's all right. I was like, oh Lord, I keep losing my guests. Just absolutely. It's moments like this that I don't forget, because of how much impact we can have just by the bodies in this room. And so we have a small token of appreciation. I mean, small in comparison to what you have. But first to Miss Barbara Arnwine to reflect your beauty. A beautiful bouquet of flowers that we want to present you with. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for being a powerful MC for the evening. Let's give her a round of applause. And to the man of the hour, Mr. Benjamin Crump. Thank you so much, so much for changing your schedule and coming to be here with us on this evening. And so I want to bring my board chair up here. He didn't know I was going to do this, but I'm going, you know, since we've been doing some impromptu stuff all night long, we're going to keep on doing it. Dr. Chavis did reach out and said he's so sorry. He got caught up. There was traffic and his flight and everything like that. I first want our board members to stand up who are in this room. I want to recognize our powerful board members. Please stand up, sir. Yes, you know what? Actually, let's have our board come to the front so we can stand together in unity for this ask. Come on to the front. And I'm bringing them to the front too, because these are the people that you can hold accountable. Right? So when we talk about this is your accountability partners. We are accountability partners in this. And so together we are a strong force. And so when we talk about creating the Charles Hamilton Houston Scholarship and the Thurgood Marshall Society, we're serious about this thing. Ms. Thomasina Yearwood, the president, please come up with us as well. I also want to thank those. There are many in this room, some in this room who helped us put this together. Some are taking pictures right now, but I want to thank those who came together and the volunteers. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. Those who fought traffic and everything. But I brought everybody up because this is how we're going to close it out. And I have my chair come stand with me. We have an ask. I ain't scared about my ask, right? Because to whom much is given, much is required.
Yes, ma'am.
And so there are not maybe a lot of bodies in this room tonight, but you are representative of businesses, of corporations, of organizations, and of personal interests. So we are asking tonight that you would take in all that you've received and realize that when you sow into this ground of the Thurgood Marshall Center Trust, you are sowing into good ground. You're sowing into your grandchildren, your children's children, and legacies. And so we are asking that those who are here would make a donation tonight to this organization. Help us to do more work in the communities to help create more Thurgood Marshalls, more Crumps, more Jenkins, more Sessions, more Arwines, more Yearwoods, more people like that. And so I want to see if our chair has any closing words for us, and then I'll give you where you can go and donate right outside this door. Hold on.
Thank you, Ebony. Let's give Ebony another round. Did an outstanding job. I am so proud to stand before you as the chair of this fine organization. It is truly, as Tommy said earlier tonight, a labor of love. We all have a role to play. We all work very hard because we all believe in this organization. We believe in the legacy of Thurgood Marshall. We believe we have something to contribute to that legacy. You know, I spoke earlier tonight about being a part of something that is bigger than yourself. And certainly there's at least one among you who knows that her husband probably took those words a little bit too literal and finds himself engaged in a multitude of organizations and efforts demonstrating my commitment to doing just that. And that is, of course, none other than my lovely bride who's with us here tonight. I thank her for being my inspiration, being my sounding board, my guidance, my counselor, my chief advisor, my mentor, all that a woman could ever be to a man. She is that to me. And so I certainly want to acknowledge her, but also all of you who took time out to come and experience tonight's event. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to us to know that as we look out upon this room, that we are making an impact on our community and that you are supportive of that effort. I want to thank each and every one of you for just taking the time out of your schedule and coming and being with us. For those of you who are here and are able to provide financial support to help us continue to work toward achieving our mission, we ask that you give, that you help us. There are young Benjamin Crumps in this city that need the Thurgood Marshall Center. There are people like you, who look like you, who come from where you have came, who need the Thurgood Marshall Center. The video we saw earlier tonight was so moving, was so telling. It shares with you what our history was. And some of those people who we all have come to know their names through other means, that they had a connection to this Thurgood Marshall Center. Is there another John Thompson who is coming through the doors of the Thurgood Marshall Center, and but for your help, your assistance, those doors might not be open? Yes. Another Langston Hughes, another Dr. Charles Drew. We don't know yet today, but we, the people who stand before you, we are committed to making sure that the Thurgood Marshall Center is there for the next one. Yes. We ask that you help us.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Amen.
I've had my eyes on you for a
time isn't right, I know. You want the love that I've got to give. We laughed and kissed till the sun took us right.